Sports fans, are you ready? Download the PointsBet app now and use code NBCPOD100 to get 2 risk-free bets up to $2,000. When you bet with PointsBet, the official sports betting partner of NBC Sports, you get faster bets, faster withdrawals, and faster rewards at your fingertips. Download the PointsBet app now to experience this premium sports book for yourself. So, are you ready? T&Cs apply. Void where prohibited. Must be 21 plus. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER for crisis counseling and referral services.
Coming up on the Celtics Talk podcast today, old friend Kyle Draper is in the building. You guys know I had to call him up. Not only are the Kings in town on Friday night, but we got to get to the bottom of this Harrison Barnes deal. Me and Drapes are ready to be Monty McNair and Danny Ainge. We're going to figure out how to get this packed. Plus, I want Drapes' view on what's wrong with the Celtics, giving us the West Coast perspective on everything that's ailing the team on the East Coast. That's all coming up on the Celtics Talk podcast. But first, Tommy screaming. What's up, everybody? Welcome into another episode of the Celtics Talk podcast here on the NBC Sports Boston Podcast Network. And look who is back yet again. That must mean the Sacramento Kings are in town. Kyle Draper, what's going on?
What's up, man? Sure, the Kings are in town, but the Celtics are struggling. I hear ratings are down. So you're like, let me call Drapes up so we can boost this thing, get this thing back. So, what's up, Forsberg? How you doing?
Man. I'm in podcast numbers. I needed to juice my numbers. People are tuning out because they're so mad at this team. I was like, I know one guy that'll get the listener base back online. So, look, we're going to spend a lot of time on Harrison Barnes, but let's start here. I do need to get the 3,000 mile away perspective. What's it like when you're watching the Celtics from afar, and can you figure out what the heck is going on?
I watched, Wednesday night's game, at least the end of it, the loss to Cleveland. And then I watched the game before as well against Utah. And as talented as the Celtics are, they still don't have the right chemistry. And here's what I mean, Forsberg, and I was thinking about this earlier today. Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown can get their shots anytime. They can score at any time. But a truly great player starts the game off making sure other guys get going. And I feel like when watching the Celtics, Jaylen and Jason, they're coming out. They want to get off to great starts. We know that. But that's offensively. Now they got to learn how to make other players better. And it sort of reminds me of like a Kyrie Irving type. And I know Celtics fans are like, oh, man, he's compared. But
I said I needed you to help the ratings, not get everybody to tune out after 3 minutes.
I know we're not supposed to mention his name, but when you watch Kyrie play offensively, he comes out the gate looking to score, being aggressive. And I'm seeing that same thing from Tatum and Jaylen Brown. And instead of letting it come to them, and so it's sort of like, a young child, when he gets out and gets on the floor the first time, he's running 100 miles a minute, and just they need to slow down, trust the other guys a little bit, and then, then see what happens. Because when you look at a Durant or LeBron, they know when to turn it up and down at a given point. And so I don't know if Tatum and Brown have figured that out yet. I mean, they're still young, man. I know these guys, we want them to be in the NBA Finals, but when your core guys, your two main guys, are 23 and 22 or whatever they are, I mean, you're going to have these kind of lumps.
And I do think the Celtics have put a lot on their plate this year and put them in this position where they want to see them grow that part of their game. And so they're experiencing some expected lumps. When I look at the standings and I see 20 and 20, the 7th seed in the Eastern Conference, they would be in the damn play-in tournament if the playoffs began today. That's when I'm like, I'm stunned. What can they do to fix this? Like, this is what we've struggled with on the post-game show is, there's so many layers to why they are struggling that it's hard to just say, okay, Danny needs to make a move. Brad needs to do this differently. There's a bunch of little things that feel like are conspiring against them, but where do they start, Drapes? What do they do to shake this thing?
Man, dude, if I knew that, I'd be sitting in Danny Ainge's office, right?
Right.
I don't know if Danny Ainge even knows what the answer is, right? Because you mentioned it. On paper, they shouldn't be losing to Cleveland like they did. On paper, they should have a better record. I think and I hate to say this, give them time, because these games are coming fast and furious. And you look up in late April and May, you're still in that 7th seed, because I don't think any of those teams ahead of them are going anywhere. I mean, Miami's back to being who they are. Philly, Brooklyn, Milwaukee. I mean, it's a tough conference. And so I just think, I don't know, man. Is it situational, IQ, like down the stretch in the fourth quarter, knowing what's a good shot versus a bad shot? I don't know. If I'm the Celtics.
Well, I guess let's start here. What's the most concerning thing to you? Is it just that Jason and Jalen haven't been able to get the most out of the guys around them? Is it that crunch time struggles? Like, where do you sit here and say, man, that's just not the Celtics?
I would say crunch time struggles.
Yeah.
You remember a few years ago, Forsberg, close game, we knew the Celtics would find a way, whether it's Marcus Smart drawing some charges, some pressure, like they would be down 5 or 6 points in the final minute, but you always felt, all right, they're about to turn it up.
Mm-hmm.
And so now they go to flip that switch and it's not quite there. And so to me, it's late in games. I think back to opening night against Milwaukee when Tatum hit that bank shot and we're like, oh, look at, that was a lucky shot, Forsberg. Let's keep it real. And so ever since then, I think, late in games, they've struggled. I think Brad is still trying to find whatever it is that they can, he can motivate this team with, get this team playing its best ball. So it's tough right now.
So they started the year 5-2 in clutch games, score within 5 points, final 5 minutes. Like you said, there was a little luck along the way. I didn't think they were as good as they were showing. And Brad Stevens said as much when they were like 8-2. Since then, let me do the math in my head. They are 6-17 or 6-16 in crunch time game. It's like a terrible number. And this is what does concern me is good teams know how to win close games in the NBA, and the Boston Celtics do not know how to win close games. And it's jarring because it's on both ends. Like you look up and they're 22nd in defensive rating entering today, which is jarring enough on its own. But in crunch time, it's the offense that is like just totally crumbles and breaks down. It's just been bad. And I just wonder if there's an easy way for them to fix that. I don't know. There's no simple answer. So like they got to stop hanging their heads on offense and then they got to fix it on the defense. I don't know, man. Brad's got some serious issues. But Drapes, beyond their late game struggles, here's the other thing that concerns me. Tuesday night, Utah comes to town. We're like, where do the Celtics stand? They haven't beaten a good team all year, really. 0-8 against the elite, the teams with a 667 win percentage or better. They go toe-to-toe, crumble in crunch time. But a lot of people walked away saying, maybe there was something we can take from that. I'm not a moral victories guy, but Scal was all excited about this. Hey, the Celtics found their identity. And then they come out in Cleveland and they look like that, where they just looked like Jason Tatum was sort of like, yeah, I'm going to toss some threes. Maybe we'll find a way to win this. And then they had to scrap to get back in it and they still lose. Brown plays nearly 40 minutes. Tatum is at like 37. These guys shouldn't be playing that many minutes as it is because of the schedule. What's wrong with their attitude? Like how are they not in a better place in terms of like, this should matter to us and this is not acceptable?
When you look at this team, and I'm with you as well, Forsberg, I'm not into moral victories. Like the Celtics should be past moral victories, right? You know what I mean? You don't hear the Lakers talking about moral victories. You don't hear, the Clippers or any of these other elite teams that we're talking about. There are no moral victories when you're supposed to be an elite championship team. You should be pissed off after a loss to Utah. You should be pissed off after a loss to Cleveland. And so I wonder about the leadership on this team. Does Kemba need to have a bigger voice? Tristan Thompson, I know he's dealing with health and safety, but he's been there before, won championships. And so I think when you look at the leaders, and you could throw Marcus Smart, I guess, in there, but Tatum and Brown, I think we put so much on their plate, not only to be the best players, but, a lot of times we look at them, they should be the leaders as well. And maybe they don't know how to do it just yet. Sure, they can get their buckets no matter what, but can they gather and lead these other guys around them?
Jason, as one of the leaders, is there something you can say during games to get guys going? Or I saw Marcus in a huddle kind of imploring you guys late in the first half to kind of get it going. What can you do as a leader? Just say, guys, like we can't play this way consistently. We're not going to win.
Yeah, I mean, everybody do it in their own way. Some guys are more vocal than others. Just kind of by your presence, if you lead by example, you do the right things on the court, everybody else will follow. So I think I got to do better with that approach. Get outside myself a little bit more.
And then I look at Danny Ainge and some of the parts he acquired. Teague hasn't panned out the way he hoped, or Tristan Thompson hasn't panned out. Grant Williams seems to have taken a step back. The only guy who's really taken that step forward is
yeah, I know where you're going with this. I was hoping you would get there.
Rob Williams, right? Yeah, Time Lord, exactly. And so I just think maybe there's a lack of leadership, a lack of poise down the stretch. Because when you look at championship level teams, and I'm gonna throw Milwaukee in the same lump as the Celtics, because Milwaukee's not a clutch team. Sure, they beat the Sixers, but they have some issues down the stretch. But when you look at Brooklyn with Kyrie and Durant and Harden, those guys have like a supreme confidence late in games. LeBron, obviously. You can look at even Kawhi, even though they struggled, in the postseason last year, but Kawhi can get to a spot and get exactly what he wants. I don't think we've ever questioned Kawhi's shot selection late in games like we do Jason Tatum, right? I mean, and so you just have to be smarter, I think, as a player. And that goes back to leadership. Who's that guy that goes to Tatum and says, that step back 25-footer isn't what we need right now? I don't know if they have that accountability with that squad.
It's funny you say it because, and you'll love this, we've done blame pie like 14 times this year. And sometimes people get mad at me and they're like, well, Danny put together this roster. He deserves the fault. And I'm like, I agree. Like, his free agent signings were not good. Every time I see Jeff Teague out there, I'm thinking, what are we doing? What are we doing here? I know Brad, so then some of that goes on Brad. Like, Brad loves his veteran players and he gives them every opportunity. He has a relationship with Teague dating back to his high school days. But, you're leaning on him for big minutes. Shemi Ojale just started the last 2 games. Love Shemi. Think he's been a great trooper for this team. There was this 48-hour stretch this summer where we didn't think Shemi Ojale was going to be on this team because of Gordon Hayward's situation. You're leaning on Grant Williams, who, just as you said, has regressed. For whatever reason, he has not been able to harness what he did in the bubble. Now, part of that, again, is should Brad be playing him more and letting him develop and figure it out, much like Robert Williams is getting the opportunity now. Aaron Nesmith has gone into the witness protection program after a dazzling 9-game stretch, and Danny Ainge sounds exasperated about what is happening. So I think there's blame to go around everywhere. So it leads to the question, can Danny Ainge fix this at the trade deadline? And we're like Harrison Barnes, we're going to get there. Does Danny Ainge need to make a move? And is there a move? Like I wrote today, I don't think there's one magical elixir move that fixes everything, but Danny Ainge has to do something, right?
You have to, and knowing Danny, this is frustrating the hell out of him, this season. And I think that, excuses are done. I mean, there's no more LeBron to get through. You had a, unceremonious exit from the postseason last year, losing to a Miami team that a lot of people thought you should have beaten. So now is the time, and so if you're Danny Ainge, you have to make a move. But Chris, what is that move? What's that person you can realistically get? And you notice I said realistically, because I know we're about to get to Harrison Barnes. Who's that guy? Would a PJ Tucker have helped you? I don't know.
No, I don't think so either.
Do you need another guard, a point guard where Teague is not your backup? Is Peyton Pritchard the guy? Like, what do you do? Like, what do the Celtics need? And I think they need a couple of things, it's not just one thing.
Yeah. And this is what we struggle with is this great balance between, using that traded player exception. You can tell Danny kind of wants to take it into the summer, or at least a good chunk of it. If he feels like there's a potential better move, but there's going to be a lot of teams with cap space, I think it gets exponentially more difficult. And then you're up against the clock in terms of using this thing or losing it. And I think that puts pressure. So I'm very interested to see. Now, one of the names when we recorded month and a half ago, whatever it was, when the Celtics were out there, we had just started stoking the flames of the Harrison Barnes bandwagon, and it has persisted for the last 30 days. And here we are, a week out from the trade deadline. You said at that time you didn't think the Kings, and I thought you were warranted. Now the Kings have slipped to 13th in the West. It looks like it's going to be a little hard to climb to get into that play-in tournament. What's your feeling now on whether Harrison Barnes should be moved?
What are you giving me back? I'm gonna be like Scal. What are you offering me? What are you giving me?
You just swatted me like, yeah, exactly.
Right?
So here's my proposal. I think my proposal has been from the beginning. You can take your pick of Romeo Langford or Aaron Nesmith, whichever young prospect you want, and a future protected first round pick.
So I wrote your proposal.
You gonna rip it up now?
Down. That's not getting it done, Chris Forsberg. I'm sorry, man. That is not getting it done. You're talking about a guy or two guys who don't even play for you. And a protected first round pick? Like which pick? Your pick? Which is going to be,
Drapes, it might be lottery at this point. Like, have you seen this team?
That's true. But just reading the tea leaves here in Sacramento, it's funny because this Harrison Barnes trade talk is only coming from other teams.
Yeah, right.
It's not coming from the Kings that when they're saying we're shopping Harrison Barnes, you aren't hearing that at all. And so Harrison Barnes is a coveted piece, not only for the Celtics, but I said it, I forget who I was talking to. I feel like Harrison Barnes could fit in any system in the entire NBA. Like he could fit in anywhere, because he could do a little bit of everything. I'm sad to say, man, that's not going to get it done, though. If you're Danny Ainge, maybe if you include Time Lord. Exactly. Look at you scoffed at that, right?
I almost hit the ground. Like you can pick any of the young guys, I think, and you can potentially cobble a deal around it. It's funny is I've heard some whispers about like, well, what does Sacramento want? And one of the things I've been interested in, I've heard some whispers about Marcus Smart is someone they covet. Can Marcus Smart help them? Does that Marcus Smart fit that timeline?
Marcus Smart fits it perfectly, because, one of the things I think the Kings need is a little heart and soul, a little toughness, a little grittiness. And Marcus Smart, and we've seen it in his career in Boston, when it's time to make a play, whether it's taking a charge, coming up with a steal, making a shot, well, not recently making a shot, but usually,
that Utah game.
I love Smart, but I looked at some of his numbers, since he's been back in the fourth quarter, they aren't good. But no, he would fit perfectly, man, because, lockdown defender. So are you telling me you're willing to trade Marcus Smart? Is that
so I think the situation the Celtics find them in, and I mean, they're 22nd in defensive rating. They can't trade Marcus Smart right now. Right. I think that's a non-starter for them. And so maybe that's just the gulf that has to be navigated. So the one thing I do think that separates the Celtics necessarily is if they were to use the TPE, all of a sudden Sacramento does get a little bit of that cap space, some flexibility, and you generate your own trade exception in return. So now you have some serious flexibility for Monte McNair to go out in the summer and either get a free agent, maybe sign someone with that TPE as well. You're in our situation all of a sudden, right? Like where we sit here for a full calendar year saying, well, they could do this guy and that guy and this guy. I think that gives them some needed flexibility. Whereas if, Miami calls you and says, we'd like Harrison Barnes and we'll give you Avery Bradley and Kelly Olynyk and the 2016 Celtics retreads, you still have to take on those salaries. Now, some of them come off the books pretty quickly, but, there is a balance there. I think in my mind, and again, I'm jaded because I just want to see Harrison Barnes on this roster, the Kings have to be focused on players that and draft capital that can help them on the timeline with De'Aaron Fox and Tyrese Halliburton. Right. And so I do think they should be a little bit intrigued by that offer. And maybe they get to the deadline and realize, okay, Miami just added Ariza. Milwaukee just added Tucker. Like there's going to be less and less situations but I say that, and there's going to be 20 playoff teams. So maybe there will continue to be a groundswell. Do you think a deal gets done? Will Harrison Barnes be on the Sacramento Kings on March 26th?
Yes.
Wow.
Yes. Forsberg, you got to be on the ground here.
That's what I'm saying. That's why we called you. Besides the ratings boost, I said I need the ratings boost and I need the insider info.
Unless somebody is offering a really good package with, a first that maybe in the teens, 15, something like that, and maybe the Celtics might, be that team, and a piece also. I don't think Monty is going to make this move just to clear cap space. Because when you look at, Sacramento in the free agent market, they aren't going to go after the big guys. They aren't going after, the elite players. They're probably going to try and overpay a little bit for that next tier guy, that guy with an opportunity might. But Harrison Barnes is only 28.
Mm-hmm.
His contract is a declining contract each year, and I understand you want to be on the timeline of Fox, but I don't think the Kings believe they are that far off from making the playoffs. It's tough in the West. We know that. But, with one or two players, they could be challenging for that 8th seed. I think they're 3.5 back right now of the 10 spot or something like that play-in. And so I don't think McNair is punting on this season and, just looking to tear it down and bottom out or anything like that. I think they really value Harrison Barnes. I think, he stays.
Man, just Draper, just a beacon of sunshine from the West Coast for Celtics fans. Just cold water here and here. Snow finally melting out here. Yeah, go for it.
Can Ainge somehow get a third team involved, and swing another asset to Sacramento that maybe you don't have, that's one way of looking at it too, because unless you're giving up, I think Rob Williams would be very intriguing. That's just from my vantage point.
Not tradable. I mean, I will storm into Danny's office and I will hang up all the phones. I will disconnect Darren's cell phone. This is not happening.
Right. Or your boy Marcus Smart. I just don't see how the Celtics do it. I don't think anybody's, taking a Neesmith or a Langford or a Grant Williams as, a main part of the deal. Maybe as a throw-in, right. But those guys just haven't panned out.
Yeah, and it's fair. And I think you have to find a team that is maybe just trying to collect draft picks, and who doesn't care. Do what Oklahoma City's doing and what New Orleans is doing. And they're sort of saying, the Lakers want to give us 8 picks. Okay, this trade sucks to make, but at least we're going to have capital to go make some moves. And maybe if the Kings are more focused on, all right, even if this isn't your year, you got to maximize every second. You've got to have De'Aaron Fox before those deals, those rookie deals come off. And so I can see that.
Yeah. But let's keep it real. You know what the big problem with the Celtics is, and Danny is my guy, but he got a lot of first round picks that aren't producing for them over the last couple of years. And that's really what's hurting them because go ahead.
I was going to say, so here's the balance. Are they underperforming because they're not good? Or are they underperforming because they're not being given a chance to blossom? How many years have I been sitting here screaming for Time Lord?
Right.
And look, did I know that it was going to pan out like this? Yes, but that's just to pat my own back because I knew he had the raw athleticism and was different from players in the league. And I thought with opportunity and with advancement, let's not undersell what he's done to morph his game in terms of, developing that stamina and improving his body and getting better defensively. But some of it is just opportunity. And that's why I sit here and I love Brad Stevens, but it drives me nuts not to see Aaron Neesmith on the court because I feel like we saw some positives. Was he perfect? No. But is Jeff Teague, is the defensive boost you're getting from Jeff Teague that much better than developing the rookie that could be part of your rotation, if not now, but down the road? Romeo Langford is a whole nother situation because he just hasn't been healthy. And
look at Miami, Chris. Look at the way they found players, whether it's the Duncan Robinsons or the Kendrick Nunns of the world. It's like, maybe if you're Danny and Brad, you take your lumps earlier in the season with these young guys so that, when it comes playoff time, they can be ready to be key contributors. Instead, you go out there and sign veterans who are taking minutes away from them. And, then, when it comes playoff time, they're useless for you. And so, it's, I think Danny, he had this treasure chest of assets, but he has not maximized those, you know.
That's
he
fair.
hasn't maximized it.
I think the harder one for Celtics fans to digest is when they had the Kings pick, when they had the Grizzlies pick. Those could have been really valuable trade assets to get established talent. Instead, you're left waiting on the development of Langford and Nesmith, who again might be very good down the road, but you're straddling this balance of trying to be competitive and win titles and develop young players. And Brad just has struggled with that. And I get it. Like when you start 20-20, you can't devote minutes to develop Aaron Nesmith because now you're thinking we got to win every game. Yeah. And so it's just this perpetual, cycle. But I do think they need to strike a better balance. And that might just mean Danny needs to pare down this roster at the trade deadline in terms of, maybe you don't give Brad the luxury of having a Shemi Ojale to play. Maybe Grant Williams just has to play those 4-man minutes and figure out what you've got. And maybe at the end of the day, he just can't do it. And you got to cut bait. Maybe you just need to see if Aaron Nesmith can develop. And if, maybe that means you're not as good of a defensive team. I don't think you can get worse than 22nd in defensive ratings. So
you can though, because last night we had the Wizards Kings game. I think it's 29th and 30th in defensive rating in the league, man. So you can't get a little worse.
All right. Well, we'll find out on Friday night. We'll see how much De'Aaron Fox shreds the Celtics based on the way the guards have been absolutely prancing to the rim. And Sexland last night was just getting wherever they wanted to go against these Celtics. I do want to ask you about a couple of other Kings, but really one in particular, Bielitsa. What's the deal? Could he help the Celtics? You keep hearing Danny say size with shooting. It feels like he's a guy that if he's, I know he's back in the rotation a little bit, but can he help a playoff team?
I think he could, not necessarily as a sixth man, but, a seventh, eighth man. Here's the thing about Bielitsa. We know he can shoot, but he's a better passer than people give him credit for. And so I look at Brad Stevens' system. The ball usually doesn't stick in Bielitsa's hands. And so I think he'd be a solid addition, but then who's out of the rotation for you guys? I guess Shemi, maybe you throw Bielitsa at the 4 spot off the bench and you don't have Shemi out there maybe. But yeah, I think Grant Williams maybe loses minutes. What do you do? But I think he could help you. I think he could help a team like Miami. I think he'd fit in, like you talked about, a big who can actually knock down shots.
You mentioned too, could Danny do a multi-team trade to get, somebody more impactful? I do think there's potential there, but I think it'd be less likely that the trade exception or maybe a smaller slice of it would be used. I think in that situation, it's more likely that someone like Tristan Thompson goes out and then it gets hotter because, you just brought him in with the expectation that he's your playoff big man. You want to be fair to him if you have to move him. We've heard whispers about maybe Toronto. I think they would be trying to get him somewhere he'd want to go, and no disrespect to Sacramento. But again, I think Tristan's at the stage of his career where he wants a surefire playoff team. And I mean, is Toronto a sure?
Call LeBron. I don't know what the Lakers would have to offer, but if you look at Tristan though, who's going to guard Embiid if you happen to face the Sixers, right? And let's not say Tice. So don't you need Tristan for that matchup? And I don't know how well Tristan would even do in that matchup, but we've seen Tice struggle with Embiid in the past.
Yeah, we've had some suggestions that the Celtics get Hassan Whiteside for the third center and, sell low, somebody who can at least joust. But ironically, what they need is Enes Kanter. $5 million just coming off the bench. God bless the Enes Kanter Show podcast. RIP. Maybe we'll have a new episode coming up because he's coming back to Boston soon. But, they spent $9 million on a center I think they had hopes for. And I'm not ready to rule out Tristan overall. But he has certainly not shown in those matchups that he is sort of the Embiid or Giannis stopper that they need. No one is, right? And I almost think their better bet is what we saw the end of last season. Like you throw Tice out there, you hope he doesn't foul, and you double with Marcus Smart. And that might be your path forward with that. And, maybe Rob adds an element of vertical spacing, but, do I feel great with those two at the stages they're at going against the East elite big men? No, but I don't feel great with Embiid going up against, I don't know if there's anybody in the league that I say, I feel really comfortable going up against Joel Embiid when he's Euro stepping from midcourt and doing layups now.
Embiid, Forsberg, you got to make him work on the other end, right?
Yeah.
That's, you got to get somebody out there that he has to pay attention to. He can't just camp out in the lane or, with help defense. Like you got to make him work. And I don't know who that is on the Celtics roster. Is it Tice? Because Tice can occasionally stretch the floor, knock it down. Tice can roll to the basket. Is it your boy Time Lord with that vertical, spacing that he provides? And so I don't know, man. This is a tough spot for Danny Ainge, dude, because, the time is now. Like Celtics fans are impatient. I remember earlier in the season, people were calling for Brad to get fired, Danny to get fired. And I'm like, dude, like these guys been to 3 out of 4 Eastern Conference finals, but I know how it is out there in Boston.
It's so funny. I mean, we got fans, like my Twitter mentions are full of people saying, let him go back to Indiana University, get a new GM in there too. And I'm thinking, my God. And I do agree, we are a little bit spoiled, but I also think there's expectations that come with it. And, I had high hopes for the way Jalen and Jason would respond this season. And I do think we're seeing, guys 24 and under are not usually put in this position, and they are struggling to adapt to how it goes. Some of the other names that have been thrown around, I'll throw a couple of Western Conference names in there. I've said that if the Celtics don't want to go splurge big, could they go get a restricted guy? New Orleans, although they're kind of in that same mix as the Kings, right? Where you're trying to crawl and get into that play-in tournament. But could you go get a Josh Hart, a Lonzo Ball? Restricted free agency is a quite the risky play. Is there anybody else out there you like for the Celtics? That I know I'm asking a Kings guy now about roster construction, but you know how it is. Like they need pieces. One of the things, and I'll frame it this way while you're thinking about it. When they got to the Eastern Conference Finals last year, one of my things I walked away from that series thinking was, wow, they were maybe one piece away from truly kind of pushing the Heat there. I don't even know if that would have been enough, but it felt like because of injuries, losing Romeo, and just overall depth, they were one piece short. And my fear is they sort of start to figure this out at the finish line of the season. They make a Heat-like surge into the playoffs, show well, but then they get to the Eastern Conference Finals against the Brooklyn, against the 76ers. And do they have enough? And that's why I think Danny has to find more impactful talent, and is there guys out there that can do that at a reasonable price?
Yeah. New Orleans is a good team to look at, right? Because they got a lot of talent, they're underachieving. They got a lot of young guys. They're going to have to pay guys, like you said, the Lonzos, the Harts. I think Lonzo would be perfect for you guys. Like I love Lonzo Ball, man. I'm a big, a guy that just knows how to play basketball. And we mentioned earlier, a guy that makes players around him better. Mm-hmm. He's not looking for his shot. He gets the ball, he moves it. The ball doesn't stick with him. But what are you giving up? Are you going to
write down my proposal and rip it up again?
you got a proposal for Lonzo too?
No, it's fun. It's fun. I thought about that because I think that's the hard part. You don't want to spend too much to get someone who could walk away right after the season. You don't want to overpay for a rental. And if I'm New Orleans, if I'm offering, first round picks for Harrison Barnes, who's 28, all of a sudden you're asking me about this 23, 24-year-old guy who could be an all-star at some point, or, will develop, could be your point guard of the future. I'm probably asking for multiple first. That gets tough for the Celtics. You could recoup a little bit if you signed and traded them after the season. Maybe you get back one of those picks, but then one pick for a rental. I don't know. There's no exact sense. But if you just don't have any more room for rookies anyway, maybe it's not the worst thing to just kind of finally splurge.
What about
with these draft picks?
I don't think this guy would fit in, but have you guys talked about LaMarcus Aldridge at all out there?
So it's funny you say that. So
I don't like it for the Celtics, but
obviously not a trade option. I think I said it on our broadcast, people would riot if they used the traded player exception on a 36-year-old lumbering big man. I don't love it because I don't know, again, he's not the defensive answer. And you've seen, when you probably saw it when they go up against the Kings, like guards see LaMarcus Aldridge now, get in a switch and they're like, they just running to the rim. But he still makes a lot of mid-range jumpers, gives you a little bit of offense. When I watch the Boston bench, I think wouldn't hate it. I think he's a buyout candidate, but it sounds like Miami is greasing the skids for his arrival down there with the goons, as Perk would say, of Dade County. So I'm not particularly bullish on that. I didn't think the Celtics missing out on PJ Tucker wasn't a huge blow. I don't know what PJ's got left. Same deal, 36. I think he's good for Milwaukee because they need someone who's got that switchability. They're starting to switch a lot more pick and rolls instead of doing drop coverage. I think that was a good risk. And they pretty much got their pick back. Basically, if you look at the pick swap, there's some nerdery there, but they're going to be able to move and make deals to get other talent now that they might not have been before because of the Stepien rule. So yeah, there's just not a lot of easy answers for the Celtics. And my fear is that everybody else in the East is beefing up and, sleep on the Sixers now if you want, but once Embiid is healthy again, oof. And if they make a move, if they go get a Kyle Lowry,
Like,
it's just
where are the Celtics in the East, realistically, in your opinion? Are they the
7th, 20-20 over? No, so like realistically, if they play to their potential, they're a upper half, but it's a crowded upper half. They're not on the level of the. They're not on the level. So before it was like the top four, there was no separation. Yeah. There was Milwaukee, but they had improved in it, and you didn't feel like you felt like you could hang with everybody else. Now the Nets and the Sixers are clearly ahead of everybody else. Milwaukee is lingering, and everyone's sleeping on them. And then another tier down, it's the Celtics, Heat. Dear God, if I put the Hornets in here after all the Celtics spare parts, but not spare parts. I shouldn't say that because Gordon Hayward and Terry Rozier are fantastic players.
We'd love to have Gordon Hayward and Terry Rozier.
It's so funny how many Celtics fans are like, they just want the 2019 Celtics minus Kyrie right now. Yeah. They want Marcus Morris, Terry Rozier, Gordon Hayward, and they feel like it'd be a title team, which they might be right.
And you know what? And that's the sad part about it, Forsberg. The Kyrie team is the one that underachieved mightily. That was it. That was the year for the Celtics. And to lose to, in the fashion that they did, that's the year that they wish they could get back because they had the talent. The East wasn't that strong. They could have beat Milwaukee. That. I mean, and was that Toronto's year also? That would have been a tough matchup, obviously.
Yeah, but the Sixers took them to 7, right?
Right. Yeah, you just never know. And so that's the year that's like, damn, they should have been so much better than that.
Drapes, again, ray of sunshine on this beautiful Celtics podcast. Hey, you know what sucks this year? And you know what also sucked 2 years? Yeah, we're aware that things have not quite gone to plan out here. It's funny. I don't know if you saw it. We have this partnership with Stratomatic, and they're doing some like fantasy simulations. Yeah. So they actually did the Harrison Barnes trade for the Celtics. And over the final 34 games, Boston went 24-10. And surged a little bit in the playoff seedings, but then lost in the second round to the Milwaukee Bucks.
You know what? That may happen no matter what does, right?
So
what's the point of that? That's the thing, man. That the East is tough at the top. You got 3 teams, and I'm throwing Milwaukee in there because nobody's talking about them, but they're playing great basketball. Had a nice win last night. And they added PJ Tucker now. Like Milwaukee's making a run. Brooklyn, Philly, Milwaukee, and then you got the next tear down with maybe Miami and then the Celtics.
I didn't give you enough time to talk about the Kings, but I do want to give you some time to talk about your Sixers. How good are they?
Extremely good, man. They are because they have pieces that fit together now. Before this year, it was like a pie, but a slice was missing already. There were some holes in that pie. Seth Curry, what he adds to that team, Danny Green, who we know can go hot and cold, but we also know he can hit big shots. Doc Rivers as a head coach, the way Ben Simmons is playing, and Doc is allowing Ben Simmons to be Ben Simmons, isn't trying to get him to shoot threes. This Sixers team is complete, man. The only thing stopping them is that Brooklyn has 3 Hall of Famers, 3 of the top 10 players you can argue on their team, which is crazy.
Yeah, like Eastern Conference playoffs are going to be fun.
Yeah, no doubt.
Celtics Hornets in round 1, probably.
I would love that. Hey, I tell you what, the Hornets are such a fun team to watch, man. I just love them. Not only for Ball, LaMelo, but our guy Terry Rozier is doing his thing down there, man. He's playing extremely well.
It's Celtics post-up legend, Terry Rozier. Yeah. And since, hopefully people are listening to this by later in the afternoon on Thursday, I want to tell everybody, a couple people from this podcast will be on Celtics Post Up tonight, the season debut. I hear Kyle Draper is muscling his way back into Boston TV to combat the unstoppable force that was Abby Chin and Kendrick Perkins last year.
Yeah, I had to shut Perk up. He's so confident in everything. I'm like, dude, you're doing too much talking. Let me come back, put him back in this place. So yeah, it's fun, man. It was fun being back on.
Well, everybody has to tune in at 7 to see how that played out. We will give no spoilers here. And but Drapes, as always, we miss you. Please figure out how to get Harrison Barnes to Boston so I have something to talk about for a couple weeks.
Let me call Monty up and say, dude, just send him the ball. It ain't happening, Forsberg. I'm sorry. One last ray of sunshine moment, right? You know, your parade, you know?
Yeah, well, at least the snow is melted. The sunshine is slowly starting to come out. Not today, it's raining. But I can get back on a golf course. I'm going to let you go hit golf balls now. Kyle Draper, I look forward to seeing I do like watching your Kings. I will say that. I wanted Halliburton so bad.
And he's legit, isn't he? He's so good. Look at him.
And De'Aaron Fox.
Right. We got some talent. We got some nice, young, exciting players. We just got to figure out how to close out games. We almost lost the other day to the Wizards late in the fourth. We just need a closer, somebody to close it out.
Well, don't ask the Celtics.
I know, right?
Jesus. Also, I have one last thing before we get out of here is you need to call out, I'm pretty sure it was Scal. The other night we were showing this highlight montage of Shemi making like 3 threes in a game. And he was describing, he goes, yeah, Shemi's out there hitting all these threes and bang, bang, bang. And I went, that is copyright infringement.
I told you, man. I'm like the LeBron of NBC Sports Boston, man. I do something, everybody else want to start doing it now. You know, it's all good though. I let Scal use it that night.
No, that's it. He tried to slow it down, like, not the bang, bang, bang. It was very, but I caught it and I said, no, that's my guy. You can't be ripping his stuff. All right. You guys know where to check out Draper. You're still following him on Twitter. Check out his Kings. Go leave him some mentions on his Twitter. Say, hey, get this Harrison Barnes deal done. You're not getting Marcus Smart. You're certainly not getting Time Lord. But let's figure out a way to get this thing to the finish line. Check us out on the YouTube page. Like, subscribe, all that. We'll catch you next time on the Celtics Talk podcast.
We out.
That's what I missed the most.
I know, my guys.